me on data exchange, and that's far low on your backlog. So far that you can't even reach it until your project is almost finished. So I hope I can make it a little bit pleasant to talk about. So for the people that don't know me, my name is Jeroen Speldekamp, and I'm working for a company called Suneco. And my goals for this evening is to finish the presentation within 45 minutes, show the basic principles of the dev. So it's so big that it's so much, so I will show you the basics. I will do a demo of data exchange from an SQL table into Sitecore, running the pipeline out of the Sitecore instance in a different separate application. And what I'm hoping is that when you're building a connection from the third-party system, that you consider to use the dev instead of programming it by your own. And if we are still within the 45 minutes and people are interested, we can do a quick dive into the MS SQL provider I've written for this demo. So, data exchange framework, what is it? Data exchange framework is designed to facilitate a transfer of data between systems. It allows you to define the logic needed to read data from a source system, transfer the data into a format that is compatible with the target system, and write the transformed data into the target system. So it's basically an ETL layer what you can use, and you don't have to build it, and you can extend it if you want. Well, Adam Kahn did a presentation, and in that presentation, when they built the exchange framework, they had a few goals, and those goals I've put on the screen is to try to provide a consistent model of reading, writing, mapping data, maintain flexibility of the current approaches. So if you have already built something, you can use this also, it doesn't bite. Minimal dependencies on the Sitecore runtime. So if you're extending the framework, you're not allowed to reference any Sitecore DLL. No Sitecore kernel, no Sitecore load, no Sitecore analytics. None of that. It's because when you do so, you can't run the pipeline outside the Sitecore instance. The only DLL that you can reference is the Sitecore service.core, sitecore.service.core, and of course the assemblies of the data exchange framework. And minimal Sitecore expertise needed to write developers providers, or to develop a provider. So when you're a developer for, let's say, a third-party system like Topcat, then you can write a Topcat provider to connect to Sitecore with the data exchange framework, and you don't have to know a lot about Sitecore. I don't think that will work. You have to know a little bit of Sitecore, but it's separated, and you will see in the presentation. So what you have to do to get it on your Sitecore instance, go to the dev.sitecore.net and search for the data exchange framework, and you have to download the framework, and then you have to download the Sitecore provider and a hotfix for the Sitecore provider, because otherwise you can create a tenant. When you have that installed, you have Sitecore. My demo is based on Sitecore 8.1, but it also works on 8.2. You have installed your Exchange framework, and then you have to install that framework. You can do nothing, because you need providers that connect to something. So out of the box you get the Sitecore provider, and there's also a dynamic CRM provider. It's not included in this demo because you have to have the CRM also present. But there is also on GitHub a sort of demo provider where you can read a text file or connect to a text file, like a CSV file, and you can import that one into Sitecore. And I could demo that one, but I thought that's too easy. So I will write my own. I've written another SQL provider so that I can connect to the Sitecore, to an SQL server and read from the table. And of course, what Sitecore is aiming for, that we all going to build a lot of providers to connect to Salesforce, to Topcat or whatever system, so that you're basically not programming anything to get data into Sitecore or data out of Sitecore. So the case today is import data from a third-party system, Chocobo, into the Sitecore. The data that must be imported is a little bit small, but otherwise I don't have enough time. So the ID and the title, I will import that one. The data stored is in a SQL database with the name Chocobo. The table name is called demo, and the credentials are demo and the password. So, pipelines. I think everyone has built a pipeline for Sitecore, right? And those pipelines are configured with the config file. Then you say, okay, this is the pipeline, these are the processes, and then you start the pipeline. The Exchange framework uses pipelines, but those are not the same pipelines as you will use in Sitecore. So the main difference is the naming conventions. So I always see a pipeline as a pipe with a track in it, and there's some train is running through it, and you have some stations, and at the station something happened, and you put it on the wagon, and the train is leaving to the next station, and at the end you have something to show. So all this, normally it's called arguments. You get your argument, you do something, and the argument goes through the pipeline. It's called, it's not called arguments, but plugins. And it's called context. Dus the whole train is called context. And you have not one context, but you have the target context, the source context. You have different contexts where you can put something in and get something out. What you have is, first step we have to do, because we want to extract something, is that you have to create your endpoints. So when you write in a service, you also have endpoints. So endpoints are specific. So out of the box you get an endpoint of the Sitecore, and I created an endpoint for the SQL server. And when you created that one, you have to create some shopping bags where you put in your information. And the shopping bag is also specific. So we have a shopping bag especially for Sitecore, and I created one for SQL. And in that shopping bag, and that shopping bag is called value accessor set. And within that shopping bag you can put in stuff, information. And that's called an accessor. And this is almost like a class. So the accessor set is the class. The property of the accessor is the property on your class. And I didn't draw it here, but you have a reader and a writer, a value reader, value writer, and that is your getter and setter. So it's like in class. The only difference is that you can change your reader and your writer if you want to do so. So this is what we're going to create on the Sitecore part and on the SQL part. And then we have to do some mapping. You have to map the accesses together. And this is easy. ID goes to ID, and title goes to title. But sometimes you want to transform data in between. And I will also show you how that's done. And when that's finished, then we'll be creating pipelines. And we're using two pipelines. One main pipeline with two steps. This first step I created. It's the read MS SQL pipeline step, so I'm reading from the table. And the other one is from the framework, and it's iterating to all the rows I've put in the pipeline. And one important thing is, because when something goes wrong, it's very difficult to see what is going wrong. Because the pipeline says, I'm stopped, something is going wrong. And I got also a very strange message. Because if you want to use this step, you have to have some kind of plugin present. And it's the iterable data set, something. If it's not there, you get an error. I will show you later on. So it's not, you have to know which steps you put where. So when you want to iterate to a lot of rows or information, then you have to put a step in front of it that reads that information. Within the iteration, we create a process row pipeline, and with 3 steps, we are going to resolve the Sitecore item. Then we apply the mappings, we already did, and then we update it without programming. And when that's finished, you want to trigger that pipeline. And you can do it on 3 ways. Manually, I will do that most in the demo. You can create a scheduled task. Everyone created, nothing is sometime in scheduled task, so I skip that one. And you can do it out of the Sitecore in another application. So that it's not running in Sitecore, and you can, so it's not bothering when you're on the CM and you're importing, it's not a heavy load on it. It's even strange, you can do a data exchange to system, third-party system A to system B without Sitecore. So technically that's possible. So I will demo it. When you install it, it's under System. You have an option Data Exchange, and when you're first you have to create an attendant. So it's also what's intended here. It's a folder which contains all the necessary settings for an exchange. When I open that one, you see I have data access, endpoints, the pipeline batch, the pipelines, the queues, and the mapping set. Today we will use the data access, the endpoints, the pipeline batch, and the pipelines, and the mapping set. So no queuing today. First step is to create your endpoints. So we go to the provider, and now in the system I have three providers. Is it readable?
No.
Yes. Okay. File system, that's the demo project I already installed, the Sitecore and the Microsoft SQL. So first I create a Sitecore, and what it does is only creating a Sitecore folder. So all Sitecore related endpoints will be within that folder. You can create some kind of convention, you can create that in the MS SQL folder. It's very strange to do that. So when you go here, you don't have the option to create another Sitecore folder. So when I'm Sitecore, I create, and I call it target. And because it's Sitecore, I don't have to put in any settings. He knows I'm writing to the master, that's it. You don't have to tell me anything. I will create an SQL endpoint and call it source. And because it's a database, I have to put in some information. So I have to put the server name, the database, the username, and password. Oh. And I have to save. So now I've created the endpoints. So that's where I'm reading from and writing to. Now I have to create my shopping bags. So that's with the data access and the value accessor sets. So it's the same. I will say I will to create the MS SQL accessor set, and then I create the accessor set and I make it source set, and I create an accessor set for the Sitecore part. You can also do XDB, but that's not in the demo today, because on this demo I switched off the XDB because I don't have MongoDB on this laptop. And Sitecore, and I call it target set. So I have my sets, and then I have to create the accessors. So I have ID, and with the ID I have to fill in a key. So looking at my database, I have ID and title what I'm gonna want to read into the system. So I have to fill in here the column name, it's ID. That's the only thing I have to do. Make another one and I call it title. And I have to do the same for the target set, and I call it also ID. But this is different because now I have to point to a cycle field that I'm going to use. So I created a demo template that will be holding the data I'm reading from the table. So I'm going to the user defined demo, the table, and I select the ID. And I save it. Then I say I can create another one, but it's easier to say duplicate. Title. Because then I only have to click here and I'm already at the demo template. So now I've created my endpoints, I created my shopping bags. Now I have to match them together, or map them together. And that's way down here. I create a value mapping set. I'll leave the name, it's not that important. The value, ID. And then you have the source and the target. My source is SQL, and I go to ID, and it's a lot of clicking, sorry. Save, this is the first one. Then I do a duplicate, and I don't have to click that much. I only have to change the title. So, I've created my endpoints, I created my shopping bag, I connected the accessors. So, for that part, I'm ready to go. Now I have to create my pipelines. And as I had shown, I will be creating two pipelines. One main pipeline, I call it main pipeline. Yeah. main pipeline, and I create another one. On my main pipeline, you see I have a lot of options. And there you can see it's also version 1.1, but because it's not that user-friendly. And Endpoints also told in the next version they will be making some kind of speak interface with drag and drop. But until now we stuck with it. So the first step in the main pipeline is reading from the table. So I have read MS SQL pipeline step. I will leave that name. And then I have to select the endpoint. It's system. There you can see I'm not totally finished with my provider, but because it's starting way on top of the tree and not on the right tendon. Endpoints. So it's reading from the source and from the demo table. Save, and then I have my pipeline that will be iterating to all the rows I have read from the table, and that when I can save this one, and then I want to test if the pipeline is working, because it best is if you do small steps, because if you do everything and then you start the pipeline and something goes wrong, it's very difficult to find out in which pipeline something is going wrong. So I will try this one. So when you want to fire or run a pipeline, you have to create a pipeline batch. And within that batch, you select the main pipeline. You can select more pipelines and they will be all started. Then you have the summary, and that's important. Here will be some dates, and we can see here what if everything is going okay or something is terribly wrong. The only thing is that this button is disabled. Took me some time to get it working because I thought I did something wrong. But the problem is when you create a tendon, I have to say, when you create a tendon, you go to the content, standard is not, it's not enabled. Yeah. It's not in the documentation of that. So, now it's enabled, so I can click on it and the thing started and we can look. And then we have a little window, but it's saying that it's missing a plugin. Yeah. It's not readable, I think, but it's saying that, believe me. So that's because the order is wrong. Because I have put in the iterate data on top and the read table is beneath that one. So when I start this, so you can see 5 rows. So my step I create is working, but the other steps are not, because he says, yeah, it's empty. I have to iterate, but there is no pipeline. So what you have to do in this step is also to select the pipeline you want, and that is process row. So this pipeline will be triggered for every row, and we have 5 rows. So we have to fill in the process row. So the process row, we have to read a Sitecore or find the Sitecore item. And then I have to take my paper, because when I make a mistake right now, It's not Robbert. Resolve Sitecore item pipeline step. I will leave the name so you can see which step it was. And on this step we have to put in a lot of information. So first of all, which template we're going to use to create the item in Sitecore. So that was the demo. The next step, is, okay, when you create a new template, what will be the key name? So I want the key name also be the title. So I will go to the accessor set of the source and say title.
It's a node name, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then you have to put in your endpoint to read the data from. And now you keep in mind, I'm building, I'm configuring a step that is looking, want to resolve a Sitecore item. So it's not the source I'm reading from, but normally because you read from the source, you write to the target. Now I'm reading from the target because I want to find an item. So, sorry, this one. Oh, you can only select that one. So, can't go wrong. Then you have to identify the identifier value accessor. So, what will be identifying this object? And that's from the source, the ID. And where can I find that one? So now we go to the context part with the train and the stuff on it. It's the content source. So if there is some interesting thing to compare, I can override that one, but it's now the default. Then you can say if the object is not resolved, finish the pipeline, or if they're not resolved, do not create a new object, but I want to create a new object, so I leave it. Resolve object location is the target. The parents, where, if there are items created, where I create that one, I will do it under the folder demo items. Create, and then which ID I have to use on the cycle part. So the ID. And then I'm finished. So if everything is correct, he finds the Sitecore item, gets it from Sitecore, but in the pipeline there aren't any Sitecore items. There aren't only sort of dictionaries. So you have your key and you have your value. There aren't items. So that's what you get if you finish this step. The next step is apply the mapping. So the mapping we already created. And so the data will be written from the source to the target. And at the end, you want to update search. You have to update the Sitecore item. And that has to be the last one. So I have to select my mapping set because otherwise it's not working correctly. And when I update, I have to give the endpoint where it is. It's okay. I will delete everything. So this one is empty. Then let me see if it's working. Yes. So 5 items were read from the table, and 5 items are iterated. And that's when I'm going up and looking here, I see my products. I can do. I see my products, and then when you see your products, I have my ID and my product. So now I have my exchange work. Now the part that I say I want to transform something. So let's say the ID, it must be uppercase. What you can do is create a reader. Sorry, cancel. I have to comment, and then I have an option method value reader, and I call it to upper, and method name to upper. You can create some kind of extension class with extension methods, and you can also connect to that method if you want, but I now go for the upper method of to upper. I save that one. I go to the value mapping, ID, transform, and I select to upper, save. When I'm running, if everything goes as planned, you see it's in uppercase. So I did my transform. Let's go a step further. Let's say we're importing from 3 different systems in the same template. So I want to know if the import comes from system 1, 2, or 3. So I created some kind of constant value. I can do that also very easily. I go to here and say constant value, system 1. Okay, and then I create all my sets. And I create an accessor and call it system ID. And I select the constant, this one. So what will be happening, I override the value reader and it will put in constant value when you're reading from the SQL table. I have to connect to the other side, so I have to put in a Sitecore. Then I have to select a field. I don't have a field system ID, but I have a field called constant value. I select that one. So I have my fields, my shopping bags is correct. Then only have to connect them together. So I have to create another mapping. So I will duplicate this one and say system ID. And select system ID. So when I give it a try, Distance. Yeah. Sorry. So now I have my constant value present. Another thing I can do is say I want to know when it's imported into the system. So what you can do is create it. Create another reader. And we have a now value reader. And yeah, it's just going to give you the date time now, so you don't have to fill anything in. I have to create my, I have to create in the data set, in my accessor sets, create another value accessor and call it import date. I will pick my date time now. Select my fields, and I will use datetime now field. Then I have to connect those together with a mapping. Let's see what happened. Okay, something is not going totally okay, and that's because you have a date, and dates conversions are always difficult. So I want to do another transform within the mapping. And
It's maybe in the raw values. If you look in the raw values.
Yeah, no, I planned it. It's scripted. So, you have an option ISO date value reader. And what you can do is go to your mapping and say at the transfer that you want to use that one. And it's okay, it's in the system. So that are some basics that you can use. Another step is I want to show you when I want to run this outside of the Sitecore, because now I always push the sync button or the start button in Sitecore, and it's running in the Sitecore instance. I will delete all files just to show that it's working. All files, all items. And I have created an application. I will check if it works. Yeah, it's working. And I can get every tendon that's present. And when I open this, it's nothing is showing. And I have some demos, and then you see your pipeline badge. So why is it not showing here? Because when you create a badge, like the tendon is not enabled, this pipeline badge is not enabled to run outside of Sitecore. You have to check that part. So I go to my badge. I have to find it here, and when you go to something called runtime settings, and do save, and I will go to my applications, and I will double click this. Then you see it's present here, and when I do a double click here, it's run. The pipeline is started and is running outside of Sitecore. And when I'm going to Sitecore, and I hope I'm not wrong, you see the products are in the system. So when you want to use and run outside of Sitecore, you have to use what's called the item API from Sitecore. So you have to switch it on, and you have to use SSL. You can't use the remote pipelines if you don't have SSL on your server. So in this case, I created a self-signed SSL certificate to get it working. And I can show you what's happening.
You can put a filter on your local host on the tab to the right.
Yeah, I put a filter here, so and I can now delete everything. Remove all. So when I do a check, you see that I'm just receiving the demo item from Sitecore, and when that's it, okay, I have connection. So that's the test. When I go to when I go to the remote tab, you see I'm asking for this tree, and also for and when I'm clicking here, it's getting the total pipeline. Every configuration I make is sent back. So when I usually remove all, because I'm to use this one. So now you see a lot of stuff. And what, because I thought, okay, it's running out of Sitecore, is it written directly to the Sitecore database or not? But it's not. All the items that are created are sent by the item API. So that's something to consider, because if I didn't test, I had the AdventureWork database, and I had about 20,000 items. I imported it, and it took about 1.5 hours to import on my system. So it's not native. You have to have some kind of Sitecore instance if you're writing something to Sitecore. The conclusion is it's a framework that I want to use instead of trying to program it myself. At this point, I'm involved in a project where we are an integrator on a large platform, and we have a lot of websites that are built by different Sitecore partners around the world, from India to America to some I think people in Mexico also. And everyone wants to build their own import. And we have an import that takes 3 days. So when you started on Wednesday, and Thursday we want to do an update or a release on something, you can't do it. So, and if everybody is building their own import, the maintenance is very difficult because it's different, and this is one framework, and you can only create providers. So you can create a Topcat provider, and that's it. That is it. You only can use that one. And in this demo, I didn't do any programming. I programmed a provider. Yes, I did that, but that's maybe in the future not necessary because there are many providers. At this point, it's not. So there's also at this point missing a lot of Sitecore functionality to write to different Sitecore field types, like drop link. So I had a demo that you can have in your table some kind of code, city code, and then match that one within Sitecore in a drop tree and get your GUID or whatever. But unfortunately, Monday my laptop crashed, and I didn't save that part of code. So I will reprogram that one and put it on GitHub if you are interested. There's another part I have to investigate is languages. I didn't find anything about language, so you see I'm only sending it to the English version. But what if I have 2 language versions? So I have ideas about that, but it's not standard. I couldn't find anything about it. So also, you saw me scrolling up and down. So the interface is not that great, but when you have configured it, you don't have to touch it much, I think. And one thing also is that you don't have a sort of notification when you have a long-running process. So it took about 1.5 hours to read all those items from the advanced works, but I didn't know where it was, how long it will take, or if it was finished. I found out that the only time you can see is when you go to your badge here. Now I have to search again. And it's so quick I can't show you now, but this will be unchecked when it started. It will be checked when it's finished. So the only thing you can do is pull or do something, and when it's checked, it's finished, and then you have your information. So it's to consider that. I don't think it's that much.
Who is developing? Is this supported by?
It's developed by Sitecore. And it's released this year, I think September or June, I don't know. With the MVP Summit, there was a session about it, so I was triggered. I didn't go to that session because I wanted to visit another session, but I spoke also with Adam Kohn, I believe, and he's very involved in this module. So the question also was, okay, where can we place this module? Because there is XConnect is coming, and why do we have this module? And the answer was that it's just an ETL layer on top of something. So you have your XConnect, and on top of that there will be this layer. So now it's not working, but I think when the XConnect is there, you have providers, and you're only configuring what you want to read from your XDB. You don't have to program anymore. Yeah?
Why would you use this framework over an evolved ETL tooling, which you can, for example, connect to the item API or to the XConnect layer? Because this is looking quite, well, really version 1.0, very complex to me. It looks like it takes a lot of work to find out how stuff works.
Yes?
Why not use other tooling?
Sorry?
Why don't you use other tooling for this ETL stuff?
We don't use anything. I just investigated this one.
Okay.
And I was triggered by, and I'm always a little bit skeptic. And I found out that there was still some stuff missing. But for instance, when you have some kind of buy component, and I started this session with data exchange of importing data is very low on your backlog, and then when you are releasing, then they say, yeah, we have to put in the dealers, and it aren't 10 dealers, but 1,000 dealers. Then you can use this very quickly to import stuff, because you don't have to program anything if it's everything is in place, so you can connect to an CSV file, and then you can import that one, and you don't have to extra tooling with extra cost. So you can place it. It's not it's something that Sitecore has built, and it's 1.1 version, and so.
You have create and update, you have release as well.
You have
For instance, if the table is missing a row, or a row has been deleted from the source table.
It's not within this version. There's no functionality. So